Good afternoon. It's Monday the 25th of September 2017, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host, Mike Robinson, and joining me today in the studio, Patrick Henningsen from 21st Century Wire. Welcome to the programme, Patrick.
Great to be with you, Mike.
Okay, well, we were going to start off with the German election, but there's a bit
exciting.
Yes, a bit of breaking news. So let's just have a quick look at, well, just to put this in a bit of scene, this is Ian Crane, of course, long-time anti-fracking protector at the Kirby Misperton protection camp, where there is a frack has been approved, and so they're trying to prevent that. And this little piece of video begins with Ian in a ditch.
You calm down.
Out of order.
What's going on? What's going on here, officers? So this is the police targeting filming again. What are you doing?
Come back out sterile area, please. It's a sterile area. Sterile area, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't stop me from filming.
I'm not taking filming.
And I've got a hot coffee in my hand.
Yeah, just be careful with your hot coffee in, please.
I've got a legal observer, disabled legal observer here.
I'm not pushing you.
You are pushing me.
You are pushing him because it's affecting on me, and I will fall over, and I might hurt
I don't want you
myself
to fall
quite
over.
badly.
I don't want
He's
you to-
disabled.
I can save you.
Just cool down, officer.
1768. What was I under arrest for? How was I obstructing the police?
Take him away.
How was I obstructing you? Right.
So that's the live streamer being arrested.
I think.
Okay. Can we come this way, please? We have to come this way. We need to move him out. Thank you.
Can you pass through there, please?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So that's Ian Crane live streaming obstruction of the police. Where are you going, Ian?
Sorry?
Where are you being
taken to? Where am I being taken to? Yeah, where am I being taken to? Yeah, tell them.
So, Patrick, Ian arrested for live streaming, it seems. It's now an arrestable offence. The police suggesting that live streaming at a protest is obstructing the police. I don't really know what to say about that. Is that where we're at?
It's just totally ridiculous, is what it is. Essentially what they're protesting there is within their rights, it's within the public interest, it's within the environmental interest as well of the community and the country. So what we see there, Mike, is police acting as basically corporate security on behalf of companies like Third Energy. Is that not how the police are performing?
That's exactly what they're doing.
That's the role they're performing.
Yes.
So that, by definition, according to Mussolini's definition of fascism, that's fascism. It's not Donald Trump. For everybody out there who wants to protest against fascism or your Antifa, what you just witnessed there, that's real fascism. So people really need to wake up to what's going on.
Absolutely. So he's been prevented from filming. Unfortunately, we didn't see how he ended up in the ditch in the first place. But nonetheless, he has been arrested. We don't know where he is at the moment. They didn't say where he was being taken. But perhaps if anybody has any concerns about Ian Crane's safety, they might want to contact North Yorkshire Police. The telephone number is 01904 618 691 if you would like to contact North Yorkshire Police and inquire as to Ian Crane's disposition, his safety, and what happens next. So as soon as we have any more information, we will let people know. But since we're talking about Ian Crane, Patrick will just straight away mention that he is holding an event on Sunday the 8th of October in the Connaught Rooms in London, AV 8.1. This is the Interim Alternative View Conference. He will of course be speaking at that, as will you, and Brian Gerrish will be speaking at that, and Dr. Graham Downing. And while we're mentioning events, we'll also mention Froome Stop War's Media on Trial event, which you're also speaking at, headlined by John Pilger and Peter Ford. You're speaking, Vanessa Beale is speaking, Piers Robinson, Tim Hayward, and Robert Stewart speaking at that. That's on Thursday, the 19th of October, 7 p.m, Bloomsbury Central Baptist Church. This a major issue to be discussing because you know, the media is not covering the fracking issue in any way, shape, or form. The media, although this particular event will be mainly discussing the media's response to to war propaganda and so on, you know, the fact of the matter is the media is not doing its job, Patrick.
Sure, and some people might make the argument that the unconventional gas and oil industry has declared war on the communities and the ecology in a country like Britain. Certainly a good argument can be made. So that's another type of war which the media is not covering. And so willful admissions on the part of the mainstream media.
So we will just mention the German elections now then. Obviously the results are in and Angela Merkel has achieved a 4th term in office. Her party seems to have lost just about the same number of votes as the Alternative for Germany party has won. Mainstream media going nuts over the fact that this massive right-wing organization has won such a major swing of the vote. But I just wanted to laugh at the Guardian here because you know, they have put the results in an order which makes sure that Alternative for Germany ends up at the bottom of the list. Despite the fact that they're now the third largest party.
This is a perfect example. Look at this. Look at this graph. This is an example of a major media outlet playing with the minds of the public. Okay, so the Alternative for Germany party should be up there. What they got 13.3% of the vote. So they really, Mike. Should,
well, I know that's the percentage of seats that they've won.
Percentage of seats, but they should be third on that list, right?
Yes.
3rd or 4th.
Third
or 4th. They've stuck them down at the bottom into obscurity. So you know, whether you agree with this party or not, or whether you agree with their policies or not, what business does the media have, Mike, in distorting reality? Because the reality is they're in the number 3 spot.
Absolutely.
So why would you know what does the Guardian think it's going to achieve by pushing them down to the bottom? That was done intentionally, by the way.
Yeah.
In order to sort of disenfranchise, I guess, that political bloc. But they're going to be in opposition, Mike. That's, you know, that party will be a vocal opposition in German parliament for in the next 4 years. So, you know, you're going to have to deal with them. What's the Guardian going to do? Not cover that? Are they not going to cover that party now for the next 4 years? It seems to me that's the signals I'm getting.
I think we get some indication of what they're going to do by looking at what's happening with Donald Trump at the moment. Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to the Middle East then. Kurdistan, is there going to be a Kurdistan?
Well, the first step was today. There's a referendum in Kurdistan. Here's a map here we've put on screen for you. And so when we're talking about Iraqi Kurdistan, understand that there are Kurdish enclaves in neighboring Syria, in Iran, and of course the largest probably in Turkey next door. But there you can see where Erbil is the capital, oil-rich Iraqi Kurdistan, voting for its independence today, Mike. But it won't automatically give them statehood. This will give them sort of a level of autonomy, which the Kurdish nation, if you want to call it that, has been seeking for a very long time. And you know, so this is a hot topic, Mike. It's very controversial. If you go back to that map really quick, let me just point out, look at who is surrounding Iraqi Kurdistan. Iran opposes the referendum, Turkey opposes the referendum, and Iraq opposes this, looks at it as a form of secession because Iraqi Kurdistan is part of Iraq. So they're saying this is unconstitutional according to Iraqi law. So that's potentially cutting off airspace is closed. Turkey, Iran, and maybe flights to Baghdad as well, Mike. That means that they are absolutely stranded, isolated there. And so this is going to be a big issue going forward. We can't ignore what's going on in Iraqi Kurdistan. It's happening. Although the leader, President Barzani, said that he recognizes that if this is a yes on the referendum, which it will be, they're expecting like a 90% vote, that this doesn't automatically mean that Kurdistan will achieve statehood. He said that as president. But the people on the street, as Consortium News' Joe Loria great journalist for Robert Perry's website, Consortium News. Joe Loria points out here that although that's being said by the president, Mike, the mood on the ground is something different. There's fireworks going on. It's going to be a 24-hour party after the results are finalized tonight. People are celebrating, and the people look at it as this means that Iraqi Kurdistan is now a sovereign republic in their eyes. This is the feeling on the street. So that's going to be really difficult to something to resolve in terms of the international community. And the U.S. also officially opposes this referendum, although some people are doubting that. The only country that seems to be supporting it, Mike, is Israel.
Yes, so Bloomberg here reporting Israel endorses Kurdish independence in lone shadow of support. We've got other headlines in other media here. Kurdish referendum, Iran closes border with Iraqi Kurdistan. So, what are the long-term implications of this? Assuming, as you say, that there is no guarantee of an actual state forming here, because for that to happen, I suppose they've got to get United Nations approval and all this. There's a process has to be gone through, which could take a long time. This could potentially blow up the whole Middle East.
This could, just as, notice the timing as well of this, Mike, is very interesting. Just as the war in Syria is beginning to calm down, dampen down a bit as the Syrian army, as Russia are making advances and rooting out ISIS, much to the chagrin of Washington, D.C. and their SDF proxies on the ground. But just as this is calming down, Mike, we have this potentially could create instability in the region for many years to come. And the reason why is because there are Kurdish enclaves in the surrounding countries, okay? So now those countries like Turkey, like Iran, need to, and maybe even Iraq, need to think about defending this new border, okay? So reallocating military resources to deal with this, because they themselves have Kurdish populations. Are those populations going to be asked to be merged into this new Kurdish state? Is that going to become a new issue for Turkey and for Iran going forward? And Syria as well has a large Kurdish population. There's talk of autonomy there as well, but it's not as strong of a case. So this going forward, this is going to be a big issue. The problem with Kurdistan, Mike, if they had this referendum 5 years ago, things would look a lot better. This would have been before ISIS, okay? When the price of oil was around $100 a barrel, money was flowing like water in Erbil 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Not so today. This is a very different Iraqi Kurdistan than it was 5 years ago. So that changes the calculus, I guess, for a lot of the key stakeholders here in this play. But the main thing is those oil fields, Mike.
And is there any possibility, do you think, with the instability that this is going to bring, that could become an attractive place for some of the insurgents from Syria to head to? Is that possibly what's being set up here?
Certainly. In what's going to trigger that, Mike, the city of Kirkuk. Okay, this was controversially included into the borders of what is considered Iraqi Kurdistan by the Kurdish regional government there. So there's not been a census there, Mike, for many, many years. Obviously, a lot of Arabs have left cities like Mosul, cities like Kirkuk. Well, a lot of Kurds left Kirkuk during the Iraq War in 2003. Some have returned. Plus, so we don't know what the actual demographics are. Those sort of areas will become issues when you start doing this ethnocentric statehood project, nation building, which looks like it's being proposed here. So all of these types of things could flare up. So it becomes now, this is identity politics blown up on a regional, national scale. Of course, there's going to be problems.
Okay. Well, speaking of ISIS, our team is covering this as well. This website, the Russians have released some satellite images which appear to show United States and SDF forces allowing ISIS or protecting ISIS in the Deir ez-Zor region of Syria. So
what you have here, and this is photographic evidence, multiple. This is just one photo we're showing on screen. I think there's 5 in total.
There are a host of them.
A whole bunch of them. So SDF, U.S.-backed Kurdish forces. They're called the SDF, Syrian Democratic Forces. It's a fake construct that was invented by the United States last August. they're allowed to move through ISIS columns without any confrontation, and sort of backed by U.S. forces in that process. So there's no fighting going on between the U.S., the SDF, and ISIS. According to this evidence, what they're doing is allowing them to go through in order to impede the progress of who? The Syrian army, to retake back their own territory, Mike. This is their own country. Why is the U.S., under what basis or international laws the U.S. have troops on the ground or arming or backing militia factions within Syria? There is no a basis under international law. It's completely illegal. It doesn't stand up to any international standards at all.
And as RT reporting here, a Russian lieutenant general is being killed by ISIS shelling near Deir ez-Zor. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, this is Lieutenant General Valery Osipov. We've got a picture of him here with Putin, and he was killed after coming under shelling from Islamic State. And in a statement, the ministry said that the Russian Defense Ministry said that Osipov was at a command post manned by Syrian troops, assisting commanders in the liberation of the city of Deir ez-Zor. So in the context of what you just said, Patrick, is it going too far to suggest that this man was actually killed by the Americans?
Well, by the American proxies, or if you consider ISIS being a proxy, which we just proved just a minute ago, that ISIS is working in some sort of coordination with the U.S. military. And you know what? It's not just this example, Mike. We've pointed this out a number of times. You've pointed out in some occasions on this show, and there's copious evidence online to support that there is some level of coordination. And I was in Palmyra, and we spoke to a Syrian colonel who was involved in the anti-ISIS operation there, and he said point blank on camera, Vanessa Beeley posted this in an article for 21st Century Wire, that there is absolutely coordination between the U.S. In the air and ISIS forces on the ground. And so, you know, who do you believe? Whose word are you going to take? Are you going to take the U.S.'s word for it, or are you going to take the Syrian army's word for it? Because they're actually on the ground fighting ISIS. The United States haven't lost any soldiers fighting ISIS. Syria and Russia have lost a lot in this battle. So they're actually involved in the war on terror. What doesn't seem like the United States is actually involved in the war on terror. They seem to be facilitating it.
So I caught this tweet earlier on today. This news organization from Pakistan pointing out that ISIS had been somebody had put up a big ISIS flag on one of the major roadways through Islamabad in Pakistan. What I found interesting about it, Patrick, is that underneath the ISIS symbol there, it says the caliphate is coming in English.
Yeah, that's funny, isn't it?
So clearly this is for a Western audience.
Yes, that's absolutely tailor-made for a Western audience there. That was designed to catch the attention of the Western media. And so this is a signal that somehow the jihadi front is moving eastward, away from, let's say, the Middle East into Central Asia, into Pakistan, more into Afghanistan, into Myanmar, as we discussed on this show just last week, I believe. Yeah.
Now, one of the things we mentioned on last night's Sunday Wire program was the furore over the Zapad 2017 military exercises that were taking place a couple of weeks ago.
Russian military exercises.
Yes, in Belarus. And of course, we've been covering that on the UK column news as well, and highlighting the fact that NATO going nuts and demanding access to view what was going on with that exercise. Well, you know, it's another day, Patrick, and another NATO exercise is taking place. So I just thought we would have a look at a couple of the NATO exercises that are taking place just this week. It's just a constant cycle of these things. This is Formidable Shield 2017. This is taking place off the coast of the UK, off the coast of Scotland, in fact.
Oh, really?
And it began yesterday. The aim is fostering cooperation between NATO allies in the face of possible missile threats.
Missile threats?
Missile threats. So
into Scotland?
Well.
From who?
Yes, well, exactly.
From the Welsh?
So it's going to run until the 18th of October. It involves ships and aircraft from Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Spain, and the United Kingdom, and the United States. 14 ships, 10 aircraft, 3,300 personnel involved in the exercise. And this is all about testing missile defenses.
Okay, that's interesting.
Okay, Michael Fallon had something to say. He said North Korean tests have shown the danger of rogue states developing longer-range missiles by hosting this cutting-edge exercise in anti-missile defense with allied navies. Britain is at the forefront of developing a more effective response to this growing threat.
Britain's at the forefront of international missile defense.
Yes.
Excellent.
Excellent. And of course, that's not the only NATO exercise going on at the moment. We've also got this one, which is the Joint Terminal Attack Controller exercise. Serpentex 2017 is what it's called. And what this is basically about is making sure that ground-based forces can organize air support. I mean, this is something that's been fundamental to military operations for decades, Patrick.
For a century.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Almost a century.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is being presented as something really exciting. For the next 3 weeks, the French Air Force will coordinate 39 French and Allied aircraft and 27 JTAC teams to ensure challenging, realistic training scenarios on the French island of Corsica. So the Serpentex exercise series started in Corsica in 2008 when France was joined by Belgium and the United States. This year, the focus of Serpentex is on training combat-ready JTACs and air crews. Participants will conduct joint operations day and night at the tactical level, close air support for both rotary winged and fixed-wing aircraft, and air-to-ground shooting controlled by JTAC's tactical airlift operations. So that sounds really exciting.
That sounds like what they've been doing with ISIS in Syria for the last 3 years.
Well, exactly. So that's exactly it, isn't it?
Ground coordination with air support.
But you know, the hypocrisy on NATO's point was Putin demanding access to get a sight of these exercises. I haven't heard anything.
Not that I heard of.
Certainly haven't heard of NATO making any kind of offer on those.
No. Why doesn't the U.S. just move a couple of its HD satellites over the area and just film the whole thing? I don't understand why they need to be there in the bleacher seats getting champagne and beluga caviar from the Black Sea. I'm not sure.
Yes. Now, last week we mentioned that the Labour Party had decided that Saudi Arabian representatives were not welcome at the Labour Party conference this week. So Huffington Post now has commissioned a survey which has discovered that 61% of British people back Jeremy Corbyn's calls for Theresa May to cease arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Basically, what this says to me, Patrick, is that the issue with Yemen has actually reached the consciousness of the public in this country.
Finally.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
what you're saying, Mike, is Jeremy Corbyn, Labour, his stance on Yemen is in line with the majority of British public opinion. Is that what they're showing?
That seems to be what they're showing.
That's interesting. So why isn't the sitting government's position on Yemen in line with the majority of British public opinion? That's a good question.
That is a very good question. We're supposed to live in a representative democracy, are we not?
So we're told.
Yes. So sticking with Yemen then, Mr. Hadi has made a statement. Well, he gave a speech at the UN General Assembly and basically saying there's no option but a military solution for the situation in Yemen. As if what's going on there isn't a military exercise, military. It's not a solution, but it is a military operation.
It is. It's Saudi Arabia's military solution, and they've been pushing it for 2.5 years. How many? 30,000 air sorties. Is that not a military solution? So what you're looking at here, Mansour Hadi, this claims to be the legitimate president of Yemen. He's resigned twice. He overstayed his term in office. He's been booted. And then he goes fleeing to Riyadh, begging for a war. He gets it with the backing of the United States. And now he has the stones to go in front of the UN and claim some legitimacy. This is just unbelievable.
Well, it's more than that, because he said that this military solution is most likely because of Tehran's influence.
So here's one of the popular mythical talking points in the United States, that Iran is backing the Houthis in Yemen. But what you see here on screen, that is what a U.S. puppet looks like.
Absolutely.
That is what a marionette looks like, right there. Mansour Hadi. No legitimacy whatsoever, least of all with the people of Yemen.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's discuss some UK news now. Did you know that this was National Inclusion Week 2017?
Wow.
Well, it's exciting, isn't it?
Pretty exciting.
National Inclusion Week. Well, the Bank of England is taking part in National Inclusion Week 2017 with various events planned throughout the week. So what is it? Well, National Inclusion Week is an annual campaign run by Inclusive Employers, which is a pressure group, to raise awareness of the importance of inclusion in the workplace and business benefits to having a diverse and included workforce.
Is inclusion the same as diversity? Sometimes I get confused.
It is related.
It's related.
Inclusion
okay.
is about making sure people feel valued, respected, listened to, and able to challenge. It's about recognizing and valuing the differences we each bring to the workplace and creating an environment where everyone has equal access to opportunities and resources and can contribute to the organizational success. But what it is actually about
Exclusion.
No, it's about breaking down barriers between teams, right? It's about breaking out of silos. This is one of the leadership phrases which is really popular at the moment, breaking down silos. It's something you'll find in business, you'll find it at the United Nations, you'll find it all kinds of places, and you'll find it driven by organizations like this. We develop leaders who cross boundaries. This is the front page of the Common Purpose website, and that's what this is all about. It's the Inclusion Week is all about the common purpose ideology being spread throughout the business community.
And their work, see, that's in the African, probably a North African or Sudan maybe, where you have Arabs and sub-Saharan looking African people there. It's common purpose, busy in Africa.
Absolutely they are,
Busy
yes.
in Africa, busy in Asia, busy in the UK.
They're busy in the United States as well.
Breaking down
yes.
borders and barriers.
And they're particularly focusing on universities.
Wow.
So they want the next generation of young leaders. But speaking of the Bank of England, the Bank of England has been an independent organisation, independent from government for 20 years now. Now, of course, many people have commented over the years on the ownership and the governance of the Bank of England. They have just produced, or they have produced an article on their educational website which explains the ownership of the Bank of England, how it's wholly owned by the government and so on. But what they conveniently ignore is this fact that Tony Blair's government gave it full operational independence. Now, of course, they say that everything they do is for the benefit of the British people. It's not for the benefit of the financial system or any of the players in the financial system. They operate only for the benefit of the British people. Do you believe that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Now, so they have invited Stanley Fisher. He is the Deputy Governor of the Federal Reserve Bank. He's coming over to speak at this conference all about independence of the Bank of England. Starts next week. They're really excited about it.
So basically it's a seminar on how teaching the Bank of England how to print money like the United States Federal Reserve does without any controls whatsoever and running up the national debt as fast as possible. Absolutely
right.
Excellent.
So of course one aspect of the debt of the nation is consumer debt. I thought this was an interesting development. The Labour Party conference taking place at the moment, as you know, and John McDonnell, who is the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, has decided that he is going to, help, as the Guardian puts it here, help millions of people trapped by credit card debt. So what he's going to do is to put a cap on the levels of credit card debt that people are allowed to hold and banks are allowed to demand. And therefore anybody that would fall above this threshold would have their debts forgiven for the amount that's above the threshold. Well, I can imagine what the banking system thinks of this. What the Guardian article is saying is that Labour's plan would bring the regulation of the credit card industry into line with rules on payday loan companies, which were subjected to these restrictions from 2015. McDonald's said he was calling upon the government to act now to apply the same rules on payday loans to credit card debt. It means that no one will ever pay more in interest than their original loan and so on. So he's putting a cap on what can be demanded. Well, what can we say about it?
Well, what can we say is that people who like to borrow will try to game that system, possibly, right?
Hopefully, yes. But in parallel with this, just by coincidence, the Bank of England has issued their news release on the state of the banking system for the past quarter. And this is following a meeting on the 20th of September of the Financial Policy Committee. They reviewed developments since its last meeting on the 21st of June. And they have released an outlook for UK financial stability. They believe that the overall risks to UK financial stability from domestic environment are broadly unchanged, and that what they describe as at a standard level. However, there are signs in some markets globally and domestically of dangers, and one of the dangers that they highlighted, in fact, was consumer credit card debt, and they feel that there is a danger that if that debt bubble should burst, that would cost UK banks £30 billion. That's 20% of UK consumer credit loans. They're particularly concerned about that. Something else they're concerned about is £20 trillion worth of derivatives contracts, which are held by companies and financial firms allegedly to manage the risks. They're worried that Brexit's going to have an implication for that, so they say. The other thing that they are mentioning is the resilience of UK banks. They're saying that UK banks have continued to build the resilience. The aggregate common equity tier 1 capital ratio of major banks has increased to 14.3% of risk-weighted assets. So that's really exciting news.
What does that mean in English, by the way? That means that they only have 14% on deposit based on what they're loaning out and creating out of thin air? Is that what it means?
Well, in aggregate, they have a capital ratio that's more than 3 times higher than it was 10 years ago. So whatever it means, that's all good news, isn't it?
So 3 years ago, it was 4%, right? Is that what it means?
So look, the point
They're
is...
doing well. They're doing really good.
The point is that the Bank of England has had to comment on this because, as we reported a couple of weeks ago, the Adam Smith Institute pushed out a report basically saying the bank's the Bank of England's capital requirements for UK banks were really worthless, and so they're feeling a bit battered and bruised about that. So let's see what's next. Let's move on to travel bans. Travel bans, Pat. This is a Telegraph article here. The 4 letters you really don't want to find on your boarding card, and the 4 letters that you don't want to find on your boarding card are SSSS. Now, according to the Telegraph, this basically means that you are, they stand for Secondary Security Screening Selection, which means if those 4 letters appear on your boarding card, you are going to get pulled over by the security as you go through check-in and so on. If you've been allocated in this way, if you've been targeted in this way, you will not be able to check in online or through any electronic check-in system. You'll have to go to the check-in desk where your identity has to be further validated, and then you will get very close searches from the security people because apparently you've been put on the selectee list. This is the TSA's selectee list. The TSA says it identifies low and high risk passengers before they arrive at the airport by matching their names against trusted traveller lists and watch lists. Okay, so I thought that was interesting, but then we discover that Donald Trump has now expanded the travel ban to include people from North Korea. Now, this travel ban, Patrick, I thought this was all about Islamic terrorism.
Yeah, I thought the travel ban was to fight and stop the terrorists from coming in the country. Does North Korea have a history of
ISIS?
Of terrorism, of ISIS? I don't think so.
So it's now, the list is now Chad, Iran, Libya, North Korea, Somalia, Syria. So that's the list. And Yemen, sorry, of course, let's not forget Yemen. And that goes into effect on October the 18th.
What is he expecting? Is he expecting that somehow Kim Jong-un is going to smuggle a rocket on board a passenger airline and deliver it to the United States or something like that?
It's the only way it's going to get there, isn't it?
Oh yeah, because North Korea doesn't actually have an operational ICBM missile program, do they?
No.
Well, let's not talk about that.
No. Okay, this one caught my eye as well. This is another tweet. This is from Yosha Levine, who's a Russian journalist. Facebook centered my post on Morgan Freeman's call for war with Russia, provided no explanation. Now, what he had written on Facebook was that Morgan Freeman says we're at war with Russia, calls on people to join the fight. This is a straight up war propaganda, courtesy of spooks and neocons and Hollywood folks. He's absolutely right in what he's posted here.
Yeah. So what's going on here is Facebook using the fact that he used some very light profanity, using that to censor his political speech. Is that what Facebook is doing there, using that opportunity as a kind of way in to censor? Or are they actually going to censor the political speech just outright?
That's a very good question. Of course, because they don't tell you what the reason for blocking the post is.
Because they're
there's no way.
they're so transparent at Facebook. They're so fair with their community that they don't tell you while they're blocking.
Absolutely. I suspect that this is more about, I mean, lots of people use profanity on Facebook posts, so this can't really be about, I mean, as you say, it's pretty mild profanity, so I can't really say that it's that, so it's got to be his allegation that this is war propaganda. I mean, we haven't had a chance to talk about this. Patrick, what did you think of Morgan Freeman's performance?
Morgan Freeman, wow, that was quite a breathtaking performance, one of his most memorable performances of his career, Morgan Freeman, and it really shows. I mean, I used to admire him as an actor, and the problem is when actors step into politics, especially when they're pushed into this kind of radical, extremist brand of politics, they sort of lose the veneer that they had as an actor. And so he plays presidents, he's played this kind of neutral, trusting, moral person. And here we have a major A-list Hollywood celebrity pushed to the forefront to make a propaganda film to sort of further one of the biggest stupid, idiotic child conspiracy theories of modern times, which is that Russia hacked the United States elections in 2016 and somehow got Donald Trump elected over Hillary Clinton. That, my friends, is a great fiction script for Hollywood. So I send that back to you, Mr. Freeman.
For comment. And we're going to end with this one, Patrick, because I nearly fell off my chair this morning. Fresh from his appearance on BBC Radio 4, where he stood in for somebody who was on holiday. I can't remember who it was. Ed Miliband has started a podcast series. It's called Reasons to be Cheerful. It's with Ed Miliband and Jeff Lloyd. And episode 1 was released yesterday. It's entitled Free Money for All, the Universal Basic Income. And it's a highly exciting listen. I do recommend that everybody listens to it.
I thought when I saw this ad, I thought this was a comedy. Is it a comedy, or is it meant to be funny? Or?
Well, I think Jeff Lloyd is of that.
He's kind of funny.
He's from that sort of. So how these two got together, I'm not entirely sure.
So is Miliband out of politics? He's doing comedy now.
He's doing comedy now. Yeah.
So he's done now. He's just doing.
I think so. A bit like Ed Balls. He's
becoming the Wallace and Gromit character slowly.
The image that they have of themselves there, it did sort of remind me of Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, and the first thing they push out, Mike. Universal basic income. That's a universal dole plus a bit to spend on top.
Yes.
It's really interesting. That's the agenda coming down the pipeline.
Absolutely is. Okay, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you very much for joining me, Patrick. We will be back at the same time tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.